Testing 1 2 3. Microphone check 1 2. Can you guys hear me? If you can, this live event will be starting very soon. Hang tight. What's up, Amy Lee? Welcome in. Welcome. It's good to see you. Thank you, Glam Van Rescue. What's up? Clarissa, welcome in. You guys ready to dive into the belly of the beast? It's going to get very conspiratorial here today. Good to see you, Rescue. All right, sound check looks good. Let's get rocking.
Big brother trying to mess with my head. He whispers sweet nothing things
Lola.
better left unsaid. We got our ears
Ian.
to the ground, our eyes wide open and keen. No gaslight, shadows gonna dim our screen. Cheeks, she don't play no games.
Yep, Kitty, we're diving right in.
Calls out all their fake claims. Smooth intuition, we got that vision. No ad hominem allowed, just facts shouted loud. Smooth intuition, we got that vision. No ad hominem allowed, just facts shouted loud. Propaganda trying to twist up the truth. They feeding us lies from our childhood youth. But Patrick, he leading the way with the flashlight bright, exposing the darkness and bringing the light. Smooth intuition, we got that vision. No ad hominem allowed, just facts shouted loud. Smooth intuition, we got that vision. No ad hominem allowed, just facts shouted loud. They try to divide us with their silly schemes. Break up our squad, break up all of our dreams.
Cindy
But we
Lee.
stick together, strong and true. Sleuth crew coming for you.
Ron Spain. Oh, yeah, that gets me hype. Welcome back in, guys, to the Sleuth Intuition channel. Today, we're going to be diving into Abby and Libby's case, also known as the Delphi murders. Today, we're going to get real conspiratorial. We're going to talk about the Reese letters implicating the whole group, right? Down from Keegan Kline, Richard Allen, all the way to Ron Logan. So we'll take a look at that. Also, Richard Allen's sex addiction, right? He said something to Dr. Walla about having a sex addiction. Could that possibly be a connection between him and what Reese Davis was referring to, Tony Kline and Keegan Kline running some kind of a business, a CSAM business through Backpage? which is basically like the original Craigslist, but it basically just turned into a website for prostitution. And the website would actually protect its users um, from law enforcement. So it was like the dark web, but on the regular web, really. So we're going to talk about that, and if that's realistic. Is that the connection between Kagan Klein, Ron Logan, and Richard Allen? Is that what ties them together? And then we got to ask ourselves what would have caused them to go under the radar? Why would anybody be motivated to cover anything up for those guys? They're nobody. One was jobless, homeless, and living off of his father, and the other was just a regular guy, worked at the local CVS, didn't seem to have any dreams or aspirations. He was just content. A simple guy, right? Small town, simple guy. So why would anybody cover up murders that they're involved in? So we're going to look at that. That leads us to Robert Ives. Why did he step down? And then we had McClellan step in. McClellan and Dan McCain were working together to acquire ownership of the CPS building, strangely enough, right? Before the murders of Abby and Libby. So they definitely had an interest in that. Later on, it becomes a pivotal part of the actual case against Richard Allen. 2019, we couldn't stop talking about the CPS building or the DCS welfare building or the building that's abandoned, you know. So we have Diener also recusing himself. Why? Rosie talking to Bob Mata about how half of his family is in law enforcement, right? That leads us to the murder sheet early on mentioning the Marathon gas station footage, right? They're the ones that kind of broke that story wide open. But I feel like as soon as they did that, and then they dropped the Keegan Klein interview transcript, I think they thought what they had were sources, right? But I think they were being manipulated. They were being used to drip information that would help their narrative, right? So everything that they fed to the murder sheet that was kind of being regurgitated and parroted, right, on their podcast was I don't want to call them idiots because I'm a big fan of murder sheets, but there's a term called useful idiot, right? Journalists are going to do what we do. We're going to investigate. We're going to get our hands on police reports. We're going to submit FOIA requests. A lot of stuff that happens with us, you'll never ever see. You'll never see the files that are sitting on our desk. There's a lot of stuff that we just don't release um, because it's not ethical. And I'm not saying that I'm the most ethical, but we all have our measurement of what that represents. So anybody can be used as a useful idiot, right? You're going to do what you do. So if you think you're establishing sources within the Indiana State Police or Delphi Police or the Sheriff's Office or somebody high ranking or a politician, and they're feeding you information from inside the investigation, they may be doing that for their own personal motivating reasons, right? Their own motivation. And that could be just simply to control the narrative. And that's also going to lead us to, well, we're going to spend a lot of time on the Marathon gas station today. We're going to go down the rabbit hole on that one. But then we're also going to look at why they released the Anthony Shots information. Strategically, they released it with a plan in mind, right? They knew that information was going to be leaked. Eventually, online or mainstream media reporters and journalists, alternative media, mainstream media, whatever, they're going to find out about Anthony Shots. They're going to find out who created it. They're going to find out about the search warrant that was served. They're going to find out about the Emily Ann. They're going to find out about the fact that Kagan Klein was not arrested right away. I mean, he wasn't even announced early on in the investigation. So they were almost trying to control the narrative so nobody would ever find out any of this information. And if they were going to find out, they wanted to be in total control of the faucet when it's dripping. So they controlled what was released and how much and when. So it's all part of this scheme to control the narrative, perhaps, right? We all know Keegan Klein couldn't keep his mouth shut, so of course they're going to have to release that. We had Gray Hughes talking about Anthony shots before that, with before even realizing what it is. We had people posting in Facebook groups that they communicated with an account of they couldn't remember the name, but it was a good-looking guy, and it was obviously a fake. But for whatever reason, they could see that Libby was communicating with this account. Some people even remembered the name Anthony Shots. So it was only a matter of time before social media, mainstream media, all of these curious people who are looking to break a story found out about Anthony Shots, found out about a search warrant that was served on the Klein home specifically for Delphi, right? It wasn't for anything else. They didn't discover the CSAM until after the search warrant. So they were there because of Abby and Libby. So those are the things we're going to talk about today. The receipt letters, Richard Allen's sex addiction, Ron Logan's house not being searched right away, the fact that it was the FBI that had to file that search warrant, Rob Ives stepping down, Dina recusing, Rosie's family being involved, the majority of them being involved in law enforcement, and then his brother being accused of fumbling the ball when it came to the Marathon gas station security footage, which sources told the murder sheet may have contained a very important piece of evidence pertaining to the Delphi case. So we're going to dive into all of that on today's live stream. So hang tight. Let me catch up on the chat. So that kind of explains where I'm going with this thumbnail here. The belly of the beast. They're all in on it, right? Hypothetically, this is the rabbit hole we're going down. Any good conspiracy, they're all in on it. Notice on the far left of the thumbnail, you have Nick and Richard Allen's defense team standing together. Standing closely over Rick is Jerry. Next to him, you have Kagan and Ron. Next to Ron, you have Gull. Behind Gull, you have Dave. Right? We know Kagan Klein, Richard Allen somehow are connected and involved in this crime. We know that the murders were being covered up for some reason. And it's definitely not to protect Keegan Klein or Richard Allen. I mean, why? You would just throw them to the wolves. Well, Keegan Klein and Richard Allen have information that would lead to more important figures, right? The Dave McCains, the conspiracy, the business agreements with the Trail Foundations, right? These non-profits. We were all suspicious of the FBI. Oh, they destroyed the marathon footage. They tried to throw Ron Logas, K. Klein. It was their job to follow them over lines. What happened? The lost tip was blamed on an FBI, right? If they can get their narrative out there first, that's the one that sticks. But now that we're seeing all of the evidence that's coming out, and we see that the FBI is like, hey, man, we tried to do our best. You know, we tried to investigate what we could. We didn't fuck up the marathon gas station footage. That wasn't us. We didn't lose any tip with Richard Allen's name on it. That wasn't us. And then eventually you guys kicked us off the case. Right? At its most important time, you just booted us off. But the narrative is that it's the FBI that's corrupt. It's the FBI that needs to go. They're not being helpful. They're the ones destroying footage. They're the ones that are messing up important tip information, right? Now we realize that may not be the case. They may be covering up something. And it all boils down to money, big money. Good to see you guys. Cindy Jari, what's up? Yeah, that song is great. Who do we miss? Or Jody Lynn. Freezing my butt off in southern Louisiana. If you can believe it. Shout out to Jody Lynn and southern Louisiana. Who else we got in here? Miss Doglover. The detective shouting at Richard Allen in the interrogation was epic. Landscape, what's up? Okay, so that explains this thumbnail that I got up here, right? Any good conspiracy, they're all in on it. So no wonder why Richard Allen isn't saying anything, right? He wants to confess, but it's actually not in his best interest. I mean, look at the team behind him. All of the lower level people, Richard Allen, Kagan Klein, Ron Logan, they've all been completely silenced. Ron Logan, he's dead. They say it was from COVID. We never know. You'll never know what really killed him. Klein, he had the book thrown at him. Anybody else in Indiana with those types of charges would have been doing half the time. So the judge that charged him judged him specifically for the Delphi case and his involvement, which is definitely not legal. She knew behind the scenes that he had confessed to those murders. That's not fair to Kagan Klein. But he knows it too. Because I think it's possible that he was telling the truth about where they dumped items. But I think they went back and picked up those items. I think that one of them, probably Tony Klein, was paranoid about it. And I think he probably went there and had it recovered. Because remember, there was Kagan Klein, when he confessed, he said that they drove to Lafayette. He's like, they drove to Lafayette to get rid of the evidence. Interestingly enough, that is where Ron Logan was. He was in Lafayette. And before they were searching the Wabash in Peru, they were searching the Wabash or a river in Lafayette. Remember, it was all hush hush. So they were searching two rivers at once. I believe one in Lafayette and then another in Peru. So maybe they did find it. Maybe they did find what they were looking for in that river. You know what I mean? But just like the Marathon gas station, poof, it's gone. Money talks. I mean, why was Ron Logan cleaning up and spending $100 that day when he knew he shouldn't have even have been driving? And why didn't they search him the day or the day after? Probably would take 24, 48 hours to get that search warrant. But they had plenty of probable cause. He's on probation. Right? They had just as much probable cause on Ron Logan as they did on Richard Allen. So what's the difference? Right? Near the crime scene, within the timeline, fits the description, could be trying to hide blood. Okay, probable cause. Let's go search him. Why didn't that happen right away? And why did it take Nicole to finally get a search warrant in there? And by then it appeared that Ron Logan had completely refurbished or rebuilt his bathroom, which is eerily reminiscent to Rex Heuermann and what he did after he committed one of his murders, allegedly. Right? His wife left the country to go visit family members. He commits a murder in the bathroom. Wife gets home. He says, "Oh, I wanted to surprise you. Look what I did. New bathroom. What you always wanted. Even the pipes. Remove the pipes." Very interesting, right? Just the amount of time to cover any of their tracks. Okay, now we can go serve the search warrant. Or it's almost like Nicole is like, we got enough here. I'll put my name on the line here. We need to go search Ron Logan right away. Why? Like, what are you guys wasting time for? Well, they're probably like, oh, we don't have probable cause. We don't want to do this. Blah, 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 blah. She's like, well, I'll do it. I'll risk my name. I'll put my name on the line. So boom, she files that. No go, no good. They didn't find anything. It's too late. So who would give Ron a bunch of money? Well, I'm thinking Dave. I'm thinking Dave might be the one that pulled him in. And if he's actually is connected to Kagan Klein or Richard Allen, like Reese Davis says, that's why we're going to look at the Reese letters, because that's kind of what sparked this all. We're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And if they're all involved in it, right? Rosie, if his brother really did grab that marathon gas station footage and destroy it because they all have the same goal in mind to help each other, keep the money coming in, controlling, the belly of the beast, this beast system operating under its own ecosystem, right? Almost like a petri dish of the FBI that they can't quite see. They can't quite get to it, right? It's so small, but still powerful if you're within that dish. You're in the confinement of the Delphi dome, right? I don't know if you guys ever read that Stephen King book, The Dome. It's kind of what it reminds me of. Its own world. Hollow Earth. Hollow heart Earth. But if this conspiracy theory is true, that means that they're all working together. Richard Allen would be silenced in fear of retaliation, his family. Knowing who's behind him, right? Look at that crowd behind him. And anybody without power has basically been neutralized. They shut him up 130 years, tormented him in prison, threw the book at Kagan Klein because he's a loudmouth, and potentially killed Ron Logan. So all these lower tier people have been neutralized. It's kind of creepy. So why don't we start with, I think we should start with the Reese letters. Well, at least the latest one that includes everybody. Okay. So remember, even before Reese made any accusations against Ron Logan, we had somebody by the name of James Haas, who was a convicted murderer, crime of passion, local to Delphi, or local to that area. Somehow became locked up shortly after the Delphi murders with Ron Logan, and said that he would be pleasuring himself on the floor of the cell and kind of shouting out details of the crime, mentioning the girls' names. Like, it was something really disgusting. He provided this information to Barb McDonald. She kind of sat on it until later on it was released in a documentary. And I think it may be in a book that she's releasing, or may have already I'm not sure. But doing what she does, she's an investigative journalist. She's great at her job. She gets James talking, and he starts talking about all this shit. He might be motivated to lie. We know that inmates, they get favors. They get rewarded for providing information or snitching, jailhouse snitches. But oftentimes they're lying. But then we have the curious case of Reese Davis, who was locked up with Ron Logan and gave a similar account of what James Haas had said, right? This guy's confessing to his involvement. He's mentioning a box cutter. And this was way back in 2017, right? So after that, Baldwin comes and visits him. Like, hey, I want you to kind of come join our team. And remember, we already know that Richard Allen's defense team is kind of crooked because of what Brandon Woodhouse is telling us. He's telling us that Richard Allen's defense team snuck into his jail under a fake name to visit him. What the hell is that all about? Why would they need to use a fake name to go in there and get some information? Remember about this leaked Discovery Index and crime scene photos. And also what he was saying about Kagan Klein being let out. Maybe they let Keegan Klein out and put him in the hotel, not to get him to snitch on Richard Allen, but maybe just as some kind of a deal. So, oh, sorry about that. Somebody was coming home. What's up, Cheeks? Just stopping by to say, what's up? I'm getting slammed at work. I'll check out the replay. Shout out to the replay crew. Good to see you, Cheeks. Jennifer Purnell. I just put the like and watching it right now. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at what Reese Davis is talking about here. Information on Kagan Klein and Richard Allen. Dear Chief Prosecutor, my name is Reese Davis, number 14793. I am incarcerated at the Newcastle Correctional Facility. I was uncomfortable writing for fear of not being taken seriously. However, this has to be heard. There are several aspects that at first may seem all over the place. However, if I don't explain it all, you'll get confused, so forgive me. I'll do my best here. Back some years ago, a man named Ron Logan came here to Newcastle, and I daily conversed with him. And a lot of things he opened up about made my ex-girlfriend contact the FBI, hoping to do the right thing, to say the least. Fast forward until now, today. There also has been another guy who was transferred here from another prison back in early March of 2024 by the name of Kagan Klein. For the last 6 months, he seemed to need a friend and quickly, very recklessly, began to talk of beating the system. And glad it is Richard Allen who was caught up. However, he feared he would run his mouth. No, I am in a protective custody unit with 98% child molesters. And trust me, the people speak and brag on their cases as if it's a cool thing. I am here on drug charges. However, Keegan Klein assumed I must have a sex case and began talking, and I slowly took information as he appeared to build trust with me. Oddly, since an earlier report by my ex-girlfriend was made regarding Mr. Logan, out of nowhere this lawyer popped up to visit me, Richard Allen's lawyer, Baldwin, on something, wanting to know if I would come testify on Richard Allen's behalf regarding Logan. I told him no because I already planned on contacting you knowing the information to do with Klein. I never told him about Klein because the information involved Richard Allen, Kagan Klein, and Logan, although he has now passed, as you know. I will now explain what Klein has told me, and I'll share the evidence as he informed me of, so you see I'm doing this in good faith. Kagan told me him and his dad were working a hustle from his back page, making big money from child images. Okay, I want you guys to remember that. Back page. Remember what that is. It's like the original Craigslist. The creators and operators were kind of protecting their users. Not really, according to them, they weren't allowing them to perpetrate criminal acts or, things like that. They were just kind of following the Constitution, according to them, right? They just wanted law enforcement not to have access to what their users were doing. Well, we know that that would be quickly manipulated by predators like Kagan Klein, right? So that's what happened. Eventually, it just turned into a site. If you wanted a prostitute, you would go there, or if you wanted C-SPAM from Kagan, you would go there. So according to Reese, he's kind of creating this connection between the Kleins, Richard Allen, and Ron Logan, right? Which makes sense, which might be the reason why he was able to come up with this story. Um, but at the same time, things like the box cutter, very important. That would be something Ron Logan would know if he was in communication with Richard Allen and Kagan Klein. And if they really did go to Lafayette, remember, that's where he went. That's where he went after cleaning up his yard. We have footage of him, dumping all this trash because he was cleaning up. So why is he cleaning up and why is he spending money all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden he's got $100 to spend on fish. And it's like he's killing two birds with one stone. He's getting ready for some people to visit, and he's also creating an alibi for himself while somehow feeling like he's being protected, right? The people he's working with, he's protected. He has nothing to worry about, which ends up being kind of true because he was never charged with murder. Right? This is a big if he's involved. But that's what Reese Davis is doing here. He's connecting everything together, and he might be doing that on his own, like a defense attorney trying to find the best case that fits to benefit him. Or if he's telling the truth. And it's the box cutter information that we just can't ignore, and the detail and how it really does tie everything together. Why would Kagan Klein, Richard Allen, and Ron Logan just all of a sudden they're all neutralized? They're all being represented by the same firm, Rosie, Aki. They work together, partners. So right there's another person that could be controlling the narrative, right? And Rosie's the same guy who half of his family are police officers. And apparently it's his brother Jeff that's responsible for losing the Marathon gas station footage. We were led to believe it was the FBI's fault for destroying that footage and also destroying or creating the lost tip narrative, right? It's their fault. It was an FBI employee who didn't file it correctly. And who did they use to spread that information? It was people like the Murder Sheet, right? Who are good at what they do, like Barb McDonald. They're able to dig. They're constantly, nobody sees the work the grind that goes on behind the scenes. And sometimes, nothing comes from it, right? You're following down a rabbit hole and you do a shit ton of work. And it's just like, well, there was just nothing there. But I believe that they were using people like the Murder Sheet, who were probably tricked into thinking they had solid sources, but really they were like, okay, we're going to feed them this, and we need to get ahead of this. So it's just about getting ahead of things, right? First impressions, controlling that narrative and using people like the Murder Sheet to do stuff like that. Chopper, what up? Richard Allen is the killer, but KKTK TT definitely something going on with them. Absolutely. Like, what's really happening? Good to see you, Chopper. Oz the Roo. Logan has giant feet compared to the bridge guy. Itty bitty body feet. So this is BS. Do you know who has little feet? Richard does. Yeah, like size 6 or 7 or something like that. But I don't understand what that has to do with somebody that's under the bridge, somebody that's in a vehicle under the bridge, somebody that potentially could have been dropped off by a vehicle right around 158 shortly before the murders, right? Somebody coming towards the private drive, turning around and leaving. What about that? What about Kagan Klein saying that he was waiting on the opposite side of the creek or the crick with his father? Richard Allen can still be the bridge guy and other players in other locations, right? Strategically placed. But for what? Well, obviously, we had $2 million spent on the trial. Where'd that money go, right? Most likely into the pockets of the people involved. We have what is it, the Erie Canal Foundation and all that stuff, these nonprofits, they've raked in at least a couple million, I'm sure, towards the trail. They didn't spend a couple million on that trail, I'll tell you that much. Business relationships, things that we don't even know that are tied to this. Remember, way before the murders even happened, you had McClelland and the McCains trying to acquire the CV or the CPS building. They wanted to use it as part of the trail system. That's true. Hey, Fishy, what up? Good to see you. Would explain the new bathroom at Ron Logan's. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. I'm just going to catch up on chat and then we'll finish the video. We are just speculating, not trying to convince anybody. Yeah, this is total speculation. At the beginning of the live stream, I said it was a conspiracy. We're going down rabbit holes. It doesn't mean it's not true, right? You find something interesting, then you go digging for the receipts to back that up. And oftentimes you're going to prove yourself wrong and then you can stop worrying about it. But every once in a while you dig, and then you're like, oh shit, this kind of goes with what I'm looking for. It's not confirmation because you already have that confirmation bias, but it's something. So you keep digging until you can verify the facts. And if you can't, it hurts sometimes, but you got to let it go. Strange, shady little town. Starting to agree with you, Chopper. What about that vehicle? Which one? The McCain vehicle? Absolutely. There, yeah. What is it? Is it this? Could it be this, Amy? The world doesn't need to know what's going on here, but we need to paint them a picture. We need to create an illusion or a smokescreen, the Wizard of Oz, while we're behind the curtain controlling everything. And we can't let anybody into the Emerald City. Not the FBI, nobody. We control the judges, we control the system, we control the foundations, we control the property, everything. The businesses, who can have a license, who can't. Whether we make your life a living hell or not. So I wonder if that's what's in front of us. The one turning around at the private drive. Didn't you say that? Oh, yeah, that car. Yeah, somebody definitely could have been dropping somebody off, right? Could have been anything. Could have been the mailman, right? The mailboxes are right there. Pull up, bop, 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 bop. And there's like 8 mailboxes or something like that. Puts in the mail. 2 minutes later, turns around. Could be somebody from school, right? It's right around 2 o'clock. They're off from school. They're getting dropped off by a friend. Dropped off. Then that person leaves. Or it's somebody who participated in these murders and they were dropped off right around 1:58. Oh, thank you, Fishy. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, we're all caught up. Let's continue on because everything stems from what Reese Davis is saying. And he could be full of shit, right? It sounds so convincing and it kind of makes sense. It ties everything together. But maybe that's why he was able to come up with the story, right? He just pieced it all together. But then again, we have the box cutter. That is the most intimate detail there. And Ron Logan's not going to tell Reese Davis the truth. He's going to tell him the truth that minimizes his involvement, any of what might be considered perverted behavior, right? He's going to keep that all out. Somehow he's going to plead his case, right? So that he doesn't lose his respect. Same thing with Kagan Klein when he steps in to play his part and to tell his role. He's not going to give the whole truth, right? He's going to kind of give a psychopath's truth where they kind of paint themselves in a good light. telling a 70% of the truth, leaving out all the shit that makes them look like savages. Every 6 months, they bought burner phones for clients, and Richard Allen and Logan were two of them, and received new phones from Kagan. From what I was told, they'd done a lot of trading too. Okay, I didn't mean to cut this off, but there's something I want to look at here with you guys first. Cases of conspiracies in the US in the last 20 years. And then also, there was something else. Yeah, let's start with this. A video here. Central Florida man arrested for purchasing child abuse material on the dark web. So a lot of people don't even realize that this is real. Share my screen.
Deputies have arrested a man accused of buying child porn on the dark web. Detectives searched Janderson Freitas Liet's home at the Teal apartment in Kissimmee just last week. Authorities searched his cell phones and laptops and found enough evidence to charge him with 8 counts related to possession of child porn. The sheriff's office says he was arrested on Thursday.
Okay. Also, I found an article. Actually, I found about 5 articles just from 2025 of people selling links, right? It's they create these links. You pay money, then they grant you access to the link. And it's big business for some people. They know how to evade capture, they know what to do, how to do it. VPNs, probably using like different servers. And those are the things that Kagan possessed knowledge of, right? He possessed knowledge of servers. He was like the technical side when it came to computers and setting up, catfish accounts and things like that. So do you guys buy into like the whole burner phone thing? Because I want to tell you right now, just 3 cases in 2025, people were purchasing burner phones online that were already loaded, preloaded with CSAM, videos, imagery, catfish accounts. That's what Kagan Klein was doing on Backpage, according to Reese Davis. I am told they all had their hands in this murder and feels relieved someone has the fall who isn't going to talk. This Allen guy sold a firearm to Kagan for these burner phones he supplied. Kagan somehow had the Abby girl victim take pictures of herself and traded them between the 3. Allen. So here he states Abby, not Libby, was the target. Kagan and Logan. Rich, well, maybe not the target, but the initial, I guess the first step into their lives was through Abby, according to Reese. Richard Allen set up a meeting with the girls with Logan. However, they met at Logan's home drinking. Logan and Kagan met up with the girls as Allen was at the farm. Kagan had the firearm and Logan had a carpet knife. Okay, so if Kagan Klein has Richard Allen's gun, so it's Kagan and Ron Logan down there. It would have been Kagan Klein dropping Richard Allen's bullet onto the floor. And Ron Logan committing the actual act of murder, according to Reese. But remember, Reese might be telling the truth. And it was Ron Logan who kind of twisted the facts around, and Kagan Klein that twisted the facts around. But the most important part of all of it is the box cutter information. Nobody knew that. Everybody was talking about hatchets. Her head was, almost decapitated. Like there was all this crazy stuff online. But the truth is, the testimony of the pathologist, they they paint a much different picture. Libby had like maybe five, like it was very brutal what happened to her. But when it came to Abby, it was only like one really big gash. Like either we're dealing with two perpetrators or somebody learning on the job, right? Boom, they everything that went wrong with Libby, it looks crazy. It looks violent, crime of passion maybe even, or sadistic, somebody that wants to see all of that. And then you have another victim that's just totally opposite. They're allowed to redress, they're allowed to put on the clothing that's found at the crime scene, and it's not as violent. So what is really going on here? Didn't KK's cousin have one of his devices? I think Murder Sheet interviewed them. You might be talking about Bart. Bart is the one that told the Murder Sheet that while TK was his stepdad, he would take him fishing down underneath the Mona High Bridge. Scare the girls. They walked the girls back to the house where Alan waited. I was unsure about the story being a lot of detail. However, I pretended interested over time. Here is some details only the killers would know, and maybe yourself, so you can weigh the information out. He informed me him and Alan moved the bodies 3 times, and they were not killed where the girls were found. He said they staged the scene, whatever that means. The youngest girl was kept alive longer. Alan didn't want to kill her, but Kagan made him because it was too late. Okay, so in this scenario by Reese, them staging the scene, could that be what has everybody thinking it's a ritual murder? Like maybe they really did just kind of try to make it look like something, right? Try to make it look like some kind of ritual or witchcraft, or maybe they did try to put something on the tree and we just don't know what it is, right? We're like, oh, it's a rune, right? Those are runes. Look, Brad Holder. But if Richard Allen's defense team is in on this hypothetical conspiracy, which could be very real, could be a real thing, if they're in on it, they're misleading the public with the Odinism stuff, right? They're trying to keep our attention off of who's really conspiring. But you have to ask yourself, why are they wanting us to look at a group? It's almost as if they're wanting us to look at a group, it's because in the back of their mind, the evidence truly, because they have an understanding of the case, right? They're in on it. They see that there were multiple perpetrators, right? It was a big group involved. And it's almost like they were hoping that more of the evidence or somebody would do a little bit digging and prove that. Like, see, look, we have multiple perpetrators, but it just didn't work out that way. But if they are involved, it definitely wasn't Odinism, right? Because that's where they're pointing. Where didn't they point? They didn't point to Ron Logan. They didn't point to the Kleins. And they didn't point to Richard Allen. Why? And interestingly enough, Rosie and his partner Aki represented all 3 of these guys, right? So if there's a conspiracy and these are your 3 lower tier participants, Richard Allen, the Kleins, and Ron Logan, right? He's being convinced by McCain, like, hey, I'm gonna give you all this shit ton of money. We need to do this. It's, it's gonna be the benefit. And all he sees is the money in front of him, like waving, right? Like, ooh, money, money, money. All of these people are being isolated and neutralized. The same people that are defending Richard Allen during the Delphi murder trial are the other suspects are being represented by the same people, and they all got screwed over. Richard Allen hasn't spoken one word. You wonder why, innocent or guilty, right? The only time he ever confessed was, according to him, the best day of his life. A lot of people don't talk about this, but Dr. Walla, during the trial, stated that Richard Allen said he felt better than he ever has in his life, even though he's locked up in prison. And they kept that out, I think. But it was reported that he made those comments. He said they all got nervous, leaving town in their own cars, out to Lafayette to get rid of evidence. See, Reese says they went out to Lafayette. That's where Ron Logan went and purchased the fish. I honestly don't see him making all this up. However, if it appears he did for some sick reason, just dismiss this letter. If by chance it seems to meet the evidence you are dealing with, you are welcome to come speak with me. To be honest, I'm only comfortable speaking with you for the moment. Please understand, as the snitch label is real in prison. However, I will. All right, so you guys get the gist. Right. Reese says that he talked to Ron Logan early on in the case. Ron Logan said he killed the girls with the box cutter. That could be true. Later on, talks to Kagan Klein. Kagan Klein says that it was him and Ron Logan who committed the murders. That's what he told to Reese Davis, and that it was Richard Allen who lured, kidnapped the girls, but hung back at Ron Logan's property while him and Ron went and committed the murder. So, I mean, what's true? Because the evidence, if you look at the evidence that's out there right now, it points to a lone killer. Right? It points to a lone wolf killer or a lone perpetrator who might be part of a bigger scheme, but the only one out there, right? Everything as far as the phone data. And then you got to start asking yourself, was that stuff manipulated? Right? If we're really dealing with something like this, the belly of the beast, why can't it be manipulated? They're in control of all of it. Both sides. But why? They're not protecting Kagan Klein. They're not protecting Richard Allen. It's because of this system, this beast system that's been established out there. People with money and power are all involved in it. I mean, these attorneys over here on the left, they have their own planes. They have their own private planes. They own ranches. They own businesses across the United States. I mean, we're talking big money here, you guys. It's money over morals with some people. Let's go to Jari here. Staging a scene is like moving things around to make it look like something else. Making a murder look like, yep, absolutely. Or even just concealing them. If you cover them up with something, you're staging the crime scene. You're not just committing the murder and then leaving. Right? For whatever reason, you didn't like the way the person fell. And something inside of you said, well, I need to go over here and straighten their leg, or, I don't want them to be found like this. So that'll tell you something about the perpetrator. So I wonder if these guys were trying to kind of make it look like some kind of ritualistic killing. Makes you wonder why there wasn't a whole lot of DNA. Maybe something to do with that bathroom. Something to do with that bathroom, perhaps, and why they didn't serve a search warrant on Ron Logan. Why it took them so long. Why they let Richard Allen go undetected, and why they allowed Kagan Klein to go free and live his life in Las Vegas doing God knows what. Why did Robert Ives step down at the most important point of his career? He had the Flora fires and he had the Delphi fires. What does he do? Steps down. Why? What would cause him to do it? Is it what's on the screen here? What would you do if you were presented with something like that? Would you step down? Judge Diener recuses himself. Is this why he stepped down? We need you to do this, says McClellan. Okay, but then I'm stepping down. Do what you need to do. But you're going to do what I'm asking you. Then you can go be a fucking politician. Or I can show everybody the pictures, right? All right. Here's your search warrant. I'm out of here. In steps Judge Gold, right? People that support Richard Allen, oh, we fucking hate Judge Gold. They're all in on it. Potentially. Hypothetically. Oz the Roo. Also, sometimes I think that Richard Allen went there to take himself out. And he came across the girls because he said he took their lives to save his own. So I really don't know. Well, that's the evidence says that's most likely what happened, right? He went out there super stressed out, having every ingredient for a recipe for disaster, and him probably fantasizing about certain things or having all of these secrets, him talking about molesting people and being molested. I mean, all of the ingredients for a disaster are there. Alcohol, maybe medication. And then there's Abby and Libby just in the way of a runaway train, right? Could have been any two girls potentially. Could have been a woman, could have been Betsy Blair if she happened to cross and be where they were when he showed up. All of the evidence points at that, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't make any sense, right? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense what happened with Ron Logan. Doesn't make any sense what happened with Kagan Klein. Doesn't make any sense what happened with the Marathon gas station footage. How Rosie's entire family is law enforcement, and it's his brother who was tasked with recovering the Marathon gas station security footage, which could have broke this entire case wide open. Right? FBI kicked off the case, blamed for the lost tip of Richard Allen, blamed for the Marathon gas station footage. It's just something's not right. And the lost tip, Holman, right? He was fully aware of who Richard Allen was. So why lie about that? That's what it was. It was a bold-faced lie. And then you have Baldwin. Why would he sneak in to go meet Brandon Woodhouse under a fake name? That's not ethical. And who's going to communicate to Ron Logan about this diabolical scheme? It's going to be somebody like Dave. It's going to be Dave presenting the plan to Ron. Ron recruiting Rick and the Kleins. In this theory, right? And this is going to be a multiple part. We're going to do multiple, maybe 2 or 3 parts to this series here. Belly of the Beast. Trip to Vegas may have been to deliver a copy. Yep. What do we get out of it? Well, if what Reese Davis is saying, what are the Kleins in business? What is their business? Their business is CSAM, videos, dark web shit, nasty shit, 8mm type shit. So what do they get out of it? Well, we'll let you do what you do best. Sell your product. Okay, well, we need to take photos, we need video, we need this, we need that. And they all say, well, we want a copy too. Garrett Kurtz, remember what he said? He said that Ashley Garth told him that she's seen a video of the Delphi murders, that she watched it, that they had a tape of it. And what about Richard Allen's sex addiction? Is that more evidence that he could be linked in with the Kleins in this CSAM business they have on backpage.com? Creating burner phones and things like that? Okay, before we get into any cases involving the sale of burner phones, I think it's important that we look at something else here. Cases of conspiracy in the U.S. Within the last 20 years. Okay, here we go. The LaQuinn McDonald murder and police cover up, Chicago, 2014. Chicago police officers were involved, supervisors and city officials who concealed evidence. And what happened? Officer Jason Van Dyke murdered 17-year-old McDonald. Multiple city and police officials worked together to hide dash cam footage, falsify reports, and protect the officer. Several were convicted of conspiracy and obstruction. The Baltimore Gun Trace Task Force, murders and robberies. This was in Baltimore between 2016 and 2017. Involved Atlanta narcotics officers, supervisors involved in falsifying search warrants. Sounds familiar. Well, what happened? Officers killed 92-year-old Johnston during a botched no-knock raid based on a fabricated warrant after they planted drugs and orchestrated a full cover-up. All involved officers were convicted federally. So this is kind of what conspiracies look like if you don't have all of your loose ends tied up, right? The murder of John Giagan and systemic cover-ups. This is between 2000 and 2010s. Local political figures and law enforcement in multiple states were involved. Religious institutions with political ties. That sounds very familiar. Well, what happened here? Whistleblowers, court records, and federal probes confirmed the existence of gang-like deputy groups. They referred to themselves as the banditos or the executioners, tied to shootings, beatings, and retaliatory violence. The networks often protected members and obstructed investigations into killings. Right? Sounds like what we're dealing with here. Lost tip, destroyed footage. The Marshall Project. Investigations, Texas jail murder cover ups between 2010 and 2020s. Who were the people involved? Local sheriffs, jail staff, county officials. Well, what happened? In several cases, evidence revealed jailers and officials falsified records, destroyed footage, or conspired to obscure details surrounding in custody deaths and homicides. Some led to indictments and federal action. So you guys get the gist, right? Conspiracies are real and they do happen. And if you don't have all your loose ends tied up, it could fall apart. But in the Delphi case, if this is a conspiracy to protect powerful people in Delphi by using, right? Why have a secret society or why become powerful if you can't protect your friends? Like, what's the point if you can't beat the law? What's the point of having all this money, all this power, all balled up into a small town? What's the point of that shit if you can't commit a murder or a double murder and get away with it? What's the point? All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick intermission. I need to grab a water, maybe take a quick restroom break, and then we'll get into hour two. So don't go anywhere. All right, guys. See what the chat's got going on here. Thank you, Jar. Yeah, don't forget to hit the like button. If you'd like to support the channel, hit the Cash App. Thank you, Jari. If you can't hit the Cash App, hit the like button. I think he did say that in one of his confessions. Let's see. Also, sometimes I think that Richard Allen went there to take himself out. Yeah, he did say that. And that, I mean, that's what the evidence supports. But I mean, can the evidence be trusted? Because we don't really have Richard Allen talking about anything. It makes you wonder why he would stay so quiet. What's up, Frank? Okay, so we talked about the Reese letters. Reese accused Kagan Klein and his father of running some kind of a business through Backpage, which is similar to Craigslist. So you'd go there if you're looking for prostitution, and you'd pretty much be protected by the owners of the site from being arrested or turned in or anything like that. So they were running some kind of a company, an illegal scheme, I guess. And somehow Ron Logan and Richard Allen were two of their customers. They would create burner phones, right? Well, why didn't law enforcement find any connection to Richard Allen and CSAM? Well, if you're a family man and you work at the CVS and you don't want to get caught, that sounds like a great thing, right? Kagan Klein's offering something on the black market that he needs. He doesn't want to get caught with his sex addiction, right? What's he talking about? Thanks, Frank. So what sex addiction is he referring to? Is that his tie to the Kleins and the Kleins tie to Ron Logan? And Ron Logan tied to the McCains, right? That's the old McCain farm, the shack, the 505 trail, the bridge. That is where Dave used to play as a child. That place is very special to him. And him and his brother have a lot of influence in that town. So if he connects Ron Logan and Ron Logan connects the Kleins and Richard Allen, that means that Dave is the connection to the rest of the beast. And Richard Allen, Klein, and Logan are just in the belly of the beast. Richard Allen with his finger over his mouth, right? Shh, because he can't talk. He knows what's going on. Keegan Klein can't talk. I'm starting to think if this is true here, what we're talking about today, he didn't give them Richard Allen's name. They already had it. They didn't need it. They went there to tell him to shut the fuck up and to stop giving Richard Allen's name, to stop giving out information from that day. And if he is going to talk, to say this. Right? They didn't put him up in a hotel with a girl and a bottle of champagne, like Brandon Woodhouse told us, right? So that he would drop Richard Allen's name. They didn't need Richard Allen's name. They did that to keep him quiet, part of some kind of deal. Because you have the Richard Allen's attorney, Rosie, is partnered up with Aki. Aki is the attorney for Kagan Klein and Ron Logan. So between Ron Logan, Kagan Klein, and Richard Allen, you have Rosie and Aki, who are partners, representing all of the lower tier people involved in this hypothetical belly of the beast theory here. Don't you find that strange? Then you have the man directly behind Richard Allen's right shoulder, lead investigator Holman, who knew about Richard Allen this entire time. And Richard Allen's defense team never really hammered any of this home, right? They never really attacked Dave McCain, right? They kind of pussyfooted around all the questions. They never really hit him with his timeline. Like, you were on the bridge? Well, Richard Allen was on the bridge. You were there between 2 and 4? Well, Richard Allen was there between 2 and 4. Betsy Blair pointed out your car? Holy shit. And you fit the description of the bridge guy. No search warrant. No hard questions from Richard Allen's defense team. And they don't even bring up Kagan Klein or Ron Logan. What the fuck? So some people are asking, why are you still talking about the Delphi case? This is why. This is why we're talking about it. Let's see. So we went through that. What do I want to do right now? Oh, this is what I want to do. We're going to talk about the Marathon gas station. Okay, this is from some notes about Bob Motta interviewing Rosie. And let me share my screen for you guys so you can get a better look. Okay, Rosie discusses that he has a brother who is a chief detective at the local post. He has numerous relatives in law enforcement. His father was a police chief, and his stepfather was a police officer for 40 years. From them, he learned that it is healthy to compartmentalize your work. Right? We've learned about compartmentalization. And then, when you are away, not to consume anything related to crime. So this guy from a family filled with cops, tenured officers, defending Richard Allen, and it was his own brother that is being accused of fumbling the Marathon gas station footage, which could have broken this case wide open and implicated other people, right? Like the Kleins, who we know actually did search the Marathon gas station that day, the Marathon gas station that's just a block away from Richard Allen's home. Interesting. Okay, let's take a look at something else here. Yeah, we'll go to this first. Okay, now this kind of deals with some stuff that I never really wanted to talk about, but now I think we can with the mentioning of Brad's brother Jeff and the bringing up of the Marathon gas station. So this was a great article. Basically, I couldn't have said it better right here. This is Reddit, Delphi trial. This is by Old Heart 7780. And remember, during during the interview, he said, "It's just the story of my life." That's what Brad said during the Jerry Holman deposition. And I'll explain what that means. This was actually breaking news, right? A lot of us didn't realize that the guy defending Richard Allen at his trial, his attorney, we didn't know that it was his brother that was tasked with recovering the Marathon gas station footage. And then it just happened to be destroyed. And now we know Kagan Klein actually searched the Marathon gas station footage. That is a fact. How does something like that happen? All right, it's just the story of my life. Go check out Brad Rosie, Jerry Holman deposition. You can use that link. I knew that was going to happen at some point. It's just the story of my life. So, what is Brad Rosie talking about? He's questioning the Indiana State Police lead detective in the Delphi homicide investigation. Who is Jerry Holman? About that lost piece of evidence attributed to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The lost evidence from the security camera DVR recovered from the Delphi Marathon gas station shortly after the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. The tip attributed to the murder sheets, Kevin Greenlee and Anya Kane, just prior to the start of the infamous Wabash River search that started the ball rolling towards Whiteman Road in the summer of 22. Right? So we now know the official narrative is that it had nothing to do with the Wabash River search. They turned up nothing. Then they try to say that they went to the beginning of the case, which is a lie. And then they switched it to Kathy Shank discovered the lost tip. And if it wasn't for the FBI, it wouldn't have been lost. We now know that that's all a lie. It's the tip that keeps on giving. The tip the murder sheet couple breathlessly reported on just prior to that search in the muddy Wabash River in a town 40 miles west of the Delphi Marimart or Mini Mart. Brad Rosie was questioning Jerry Holman in that August 10th, 2023 deposition about circumstances in the past where you've been involved in investigations where agencies are making decisions based on just what's in their best interest. Holman answers that question was a resounding yes. His answer to that question. Rosie continued along that line of questioning. Has that been not helpful to investigations because of that? Holman's answer. Very detrimental to the investigation, yes. It's just the story of my life. So what was Brad Rosie lamenting about during that enlightening deposition with the well-seasoned ISP homicide detective? It all boils down to the tip about someone looking up that Delphi Marathon gas station, Mini Mart or Marimart, whose business name the Carroll County prosecutor Nick McClellan nor Holman could seem to remember. Someone connected to the fraudulent social media account Anthony Schatz was looking up that Delphi Gas Munchie's business on the morning of the murders, a business located less than a mile from Richard and Kathy Allen's home on Whiteman Road. Apparently, it was the FBI's contention that they didn't lose that vital security camera DVR data from the Delphi Marathon gas station Mini Mart / Marimart. It was the Indiana State Police own trooper, Josh Rosie, who was supposed to collect that video. Jerry Holman tells Brad Rosie, we have written documentation that the FBI, went and collected the hard drive. And they said that your brother, Josh Rosie, was supposed to collect that. This is where Brad Rosie chimes. It's just the story of my life. Small world, eh? That's the creepiest shit. You know, it's almost like they're talking together. They're not talking at each other. They're talking with each other. The tip from the murder sheet couple about that Delphi Marathon gas station is what got Kegan Kline up off his ass. After exactly 2 years of sitting in a comfy Miami County jail, pedopod, and talking to the Indiana State Police and the Carroll County prosecutor at the secure location with the confines of a federally fenced and gated Grissom Air Force base, right? Remember, we had an Air Force employee who dealt with Holman who mysteriously took his own life, you know, who I believe may have been surfing the dark web with somebody else who is well known on social media, and they uncovered some things. After reading the transcript of Jerry Holman's deposition with Brad Rosie and Andrew Baldwin, it's abundantly clear there's something there. There's something there. Ooh, Mills, thank you so much. Aw, snap. I appreciate that. I got to hit you with the money bags. Here comes the money train. Mills. I appreciate that. We can definitely use it here. How do we know that the Marathon gas station video was destroyed or corrupted? What happens if the FBI has it still, not trying to be a distraction? No, it's a good question. Right. Don't know. All right. There's something there. All right. The FBI botched the retrieval of that vital security camera video evidence. And yet the FBI pointed their finger at Brad Rosie's brother, ISP Trooper Josh Rosie, as the culprit. This is what convinced Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter to throw the FBI off the Delphi homicide investigation. Right? We don't need them. They're starting to put everything together here. They're meddling. Truth is, we don't know whether the FBI or ISP Trooper Josh Rosie ever retrieved anything from the Delphi Mini Mart shortly after two kids were brutally murdered. Less than 2 miles away. Reading through the ISP detective's deposition, it is clear he believes the two men from Peru, Indiana, who had been using that fraudulent social media account, Anthony Schatz, to communicate with Libby German that day, are somehow involved in the murders of both Libby and her best friend, Abby Williams. Note, the pretrial deposition that took place a full year after Richard Allen's arrest on October 26, 2022, a full year after Allen's arrest, including all of his protective custody, psychotic break antics, where he confesses he was the sole killer on Ron Logan's property that day. So one thing that I think is important to remember while we're going through this information is that Kagan Klein's trial for CSAM was 100% tied into the Delphi murder case. It was kind of like a secret illegal trial against Kagan Klein. Because if now we know that they did interview Kagan and he confessed, he took him to Delphi and said, hey, this is how it went down. You know, my father went into the woods with a friend. He came back and he said, we just had fun. Right? That's just him minimizing his involvement. But if we know that he's giving this information early on and the public finds out, they're going to know it's possible that the judge or the person that was sentencing Kagan Klein had that same knowledge, right? He had behind the scenes knowledge from Nick McClellan and this group that's interviewing Kagan Klein that he's involved. They just can't prove it, or they don't want to prove it, right? We don't want him to talk. We don't want him involved. So we're going to have this judge throw the book at him, and we'll tell him that it's in his best interest, right? We're not going to charge you with murder. We'll take you out for the night. We'll get you a hotel. You can do all these things. Is that your deal? We have a deal? Yeah, if you let me out of jail and I can get a girlfriend or a girl or whatever and some alcohol, and you let me free for the night, yeah, I'll keep my mouth shut and you guys can do whatever you want. They already knew Richard Allen's name. They already knew about Kagan Klein. They knew about everything. It was in their best interest to shut up Richard Allen, to shut up Kagan Klein, and to stop Ron Logan, because these are all the lower tier people that are expendable. And that's exactly what happened. They were shaved right off, right? Like a booger, flicked. One's dead. Don't know how they died. They claimed it was COVID, right? He was tortured too, apparently, in prison, just like what they did to Richard Allen. Probably threatened. But here's something that I really didn't want to talk about, but because this is brought back up, I think it's important. So this is one of those things that you kind of keep on the back burner. Okay, this is Amber M. Bowles. She died in 2018. I'm going to read her obituary. Delphi Amber N. Bowles, 41, of Delphi, died unexpectedly at her home Saturday, August 25th of 2018 at 4 a.m. She was born January 12th, 1977, to the late Harry Walters Jr. and her mother, Carol A. Morrow Nelson. Her marriage was to Jeffrey A. Bowles in Delphi on June 22nd, 2013, and he survives. She was a 1997 graduate of Delphi Community High School. She was currently working at Marathon in Delphi as a sales clerk for the past 3 years. She died in 2018. Heart attack, you say? Did she see the marathon footage? Does she know what's on that footage? I think that law enforcement likes it that way, in my opinion, until this case is fully put through our judicial system. I don't know. This is like the case that'll never be solved. And why is that? Is it the belly of the beast? Is that why? What are they, if this is true, what are they protecting? It's got to be something bigger. Maybe more murder cases, some kind of corruption, maybe some kind of money laundering, or maybe it's sex trafficking. Maybe it is Satanism, like the Illuminati type shit, where they steal your kids and they sacrifice them, the whole adrenochrome, but mainly like this, maybe they're all just pedophiles. Or just corrupt in their own way, right? He might be a pedophile, he might be laundering money. They just all have a mutual agreement, and it's all about money. You can do what you do, I'll do what I do. And when shit hits the fan, that's why we do what we do, so that we can protect each other. I mean, what is the point of having a secret society or a secret agreement if when the time comes you can't wield it like a sword? What's up, Dark Side? Jessica, how you doing? Standard operating procedure, unfortunately. Where's that video landscape? Okay, so what do you guys make of that? We have a person who was working as a clerk at the Marathon gas station from what sounds like maybe late 2015 all the way to the time of her death. Let me pull something up that might take away from that, or maybe not. Because I called the Marathon gas station today, and I asked to speak with anybody that had been working there around 2016, 2017, and they said nobody. Like, there's nobody working here. There's nobody to get in contact with that's been working there. So the person that you would really want to talk to about that is dead. Okay. Sources close to the investigation told Murder Sheet that FBI agents were instructed by the Indiana State Police to go to the Marathon gas station to obtain surveillance footage and see if Klein ever went there. See, so this is the information that was fed to the Murder Sheet. And why is that? Because they knew that they would put it out to the public and that that would be the official narrative. And the FBI is just sitting back like, what the fuck? That's not what happened. That's not what that's not even remotely true. We were asked, to make sure it got done, and Rosie was more than happy to oblige. It was Jeff. He went there to go get that footage. But yet they used the murder sheet, and this is what we get. Sources close to the investigation, right? Who's that? Somebody using the murder sheet as a useful idiot. And I'm not calling them idiots. That's just what it's called when somebody uses you as a pawn in their game, expecting you to do what you do. And what is it that they do? They investigate, they establish sources, and then they present those stories to the public. That's what journalism is, right? That's what they do. So that makes them, and anybody like them, potentially a useful idiot for law enforcement if they're trying to feed this narrative out to the public. All right, let me continue on here. A gas station worker told police he remembered agents coming in to collect the footage and that they cooperated fully. So who was that? Was that Rosie? Maybe Amber could have answered that question. But apparently she passed away with some kind of heart condition suddenly at 4 a.m. in the morning. The FBI, as per the podcast sources, reportedly tried to download the video to a thumb drive, but suffered a technical issue. When the issue persisted, the gas station worker handed over a hard drive containing the footage, which agents then took away with them. However, there were either additional technical issues or some kind of a task management mishap, and the FBI later returned the hard drive without having viewed or downloaded the footage. So that's the story that was fed to the murder sheet. And then the murder sheet fed it to us. And we said, oh, that's what happened, right? The murder sheet, they have a source that's giving us information from inside the investigation, right? This is chess. It's not checkers. What's up, She Warrior? Let's go to Mills. I appreciate that, Mills. It's good to have you around. Thanks for supporting my channel, by the way. It means a lot to me. Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Don. We got the best moderators, guys. Dark Side, I do think if the girls were on the bridge that day, because KK then, he definitely knew Richard, in my opinion, and more likely for something to be in that videotape. Yeah. So if there's something most likely on that videotape, and we had Detective Vito confirm that Keegan Kline did look up the Marathon gas station that day. Why? Why would Keegan Kline, the guy who confessed, the guy that Reese Davis says is running some scheme through Backpage and is tied to Richard Allen and Ron Logan, why would he look up the Marathon gas station the day that the girls died? The Marathon gas station that's right around the corner from Richard Allen's home. And then all of a sudden that video disappears. And the person who is hired to defend Richard Allen, his brother, according to the FBI, is the one that fucked up. So you want to talk about a kangaroo court? That's what we're dealing with. But that doesn't mean Richard Allen's innocent. He's just being silenced. He's being silenced like Keegan Kline. And why do you think TK is nowhere to be found? They don't want him anywhere. They don't want anybody talking. He's like, shit, they'll do to me what they did to Ron, what they did to my son, and what they're doing to Richard Allen right now. I'm not saying shit. So they're not worried about him. As long as they don't touch him, he's fine. He don't want no part of any of that. And they don't want him involved. Because anybody that's involved for whatever reason would be implicating somebody much more powerful within that belly of the beast. Let me see if I have anything more for you guys in part one. Nope, I think that's going to do it. All right, we'll spend 5 to 10 minutes in the chat. You guys let me know what you think about today's live stream. And we should have at least a part 2 coming up. There's some other things I want to touch on with this. I want to focus more in on The McCains and the McClellans working together in this Erie Canal Foundation and trying to acquire land. Like, why are they working together? And what does it mean? So we'll focus in on that kind of stuff. A little bit more on Robert Ives. You know, why would he step down? He just had the biggest case of his entire career pop up with the Flora fires. No suspect in sight. And now he's hit with the Delphi murders. Before the year's out, he's stepping down, and McClellan stepping in, the person that's working with the McCains to acquire all this land and all these business interests, including the DCS welfare building, that potentially, who knows what could have been going on inside that building. What were they using it for? And why did they just tear it down? It's crazy. Thank you, Jari. I appreciate that. So if you guys have anything to add, do it now. If you're part of the replay crew, let me know what's up. Drop a comment. Like I said, we're just going down a rabbit hole right now, trying to figure out how this is possible, how the FBI could be blamed for a lost tip that wasn't lost. We have documentation that proves that Jerry Holman was fully aware of Richard Allen, at least by 2019. Right? So what the hell is going on? Why lie? Why lie about it? And why did Richard Allen's defense team not bring up Ron Logan or Keegan Kline, this guy who confessed? Is it because Rosie's partner, Aki, was also representing Ron Logan and Keegan Kline? So all three of the lower tier people involved are being represented by the same firm. That same firm has an entire family of police officers, one who was tasked, according to the FBI, of gathering the Marathon gas station footage, which potentially could have broke this case in a completely wide open. Right? We know that Keegan Kline searched the Marathon gas station in Delphi on the 13th. How is that even freaking possible? Why isn't Richard Allen confessing his innocence or his guilt? Because he knows to shut the fuck up. He knows who's behind him. It's not worth it because he is guilty. He's like, I'm guilty. It's not worth it to put my family at risk. Yeah, make sure you guys hit the like button on the way out. Consider becoming a member. We haven't been really active in members. We've lost quite a bit, but we'll start becoming active, I think, the beginning of the year. So keep supporting my channel and we'll keep rocking and rolling. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. So the whole purpose of this live stream was educational. None of these people are tied to anything that we've said other than what's been released publicly. I'm not trying to accuse anybody. I'm just trying to get you guys to think. There's something going on in Delphi. There's something motivating all of this devious behavior. And I'm going to find out what it is. One way or the other.
Big brother trying to mess with my head. He whispers sweet nothing, things better left unsaid. We got our ears to the ground, our eyes wide open and keen. No gaslight, shadows gonna dim our screen. Cheeks, she don't play no games. She calls out all their fake claims. Sloop intuition, we got that up the truth. They feeding us lies from our childhood youth. But Patrick, he leading the way with a flashlight bright, exposing the darkness and bringing the light. Smooth intuition, he got that vision. No ad hominem allowed, just facts shouted loud. Smooth intuition, he got that vision. No ad hominem allowed, just facts shouted loud. They try to divide us with their silly schemes, break up our squad, break up all of our dreams. But we stick together, strong and true. Sleuth crew coming for you.